Hey guys, this is Junaid here from K21Academy, and I welcome you all to this interesting session where we're going to take a look into some of the popular interview questions asked during Power BI interview sessions. So without any further ado, let me quickly jump to the questions. So what is BI? Well, BI or business intelligence is a technology driven method. It helps you to analyze data and to provide accountable information which helps corporate executives, business managers, and other users to take decisive business decisions. All right, so basically BI stands for business intelligence, right? And here we can use multiple tools, and using these tools we can generate certain type of let's say forecasting in order to understand how our business should look like in the future. Moving ahead to the next question, what exactly is Power BI, right? So if you're someone who is if you don't know, right, if you're someone who's planning on applying for a job as a data analyst, Power BI is one of the popular tools which is being there. So let's see what exactly is Power BI. Well, Power BI is a business intelligence and data visualization tools which helps you to convert data from various data sources into interactive dashboards and BI reports. It provides multiple software connectors and services. Okay, so what exactly I'm trying to say over here is that with Power BI you can obviously generate various graphs, and with the help of these graphs, right, you can visualize the data, you can come down to forecasting, and all the graphs within that particular dashboard are interlinked. So based on the different filters that you apply, we can work with different types of visualizations. Okay, so now you might be wondering, right, like when we have multiple tools, why should we use Power BI? Well, there are a couple of reasons why you should use Power BI. First off, Power BI is something which is developed and updated by Microsoft. And we all know Microsoft is one of the popular, or let's say one of the tech giants in the industry world today. Apart from that, some of the reasons why you should consider using Power BI is listed over here. Alright, so moving ahead to the next question, what are the important components of Power BI? Right? So here are some of the important components of Power BI. First one is data integration, data processing, and data presentation. What does this data integration means? We can use multiple filters in order to generate or create a basic relationship between two types of data. Data processing, we can, as I mentioned earlier, with the help of filters, we can do some modifications and pre-process or process the data. And finally, we all know we can use the data which has been pre-processed into a visualized format in order to generate a meaningful information. So moving on to the next question, what is DAX function? Well, with Power BI, right, we use this kind of programming language called as DAX. And with the help of DAX function, we can create our own custom visualizations. And this is basically a functional language. And functional programming language is something which is similar to C programming. Alright, then moving on to the different types of data types which is available in DAX. Well, some of the data types that are present in DAX is kind of similar to what we would see in a generic programming language. We have numeric, boolean, date and time, string, and decimal. Moving on to the next one, what are the essential applications of Power BI? Guys, this is one of the important questions that can be asked during your interviews. Like if you're using Power BI, it's important to know why you use it, what is the programming language which is running behind it, and also the applications. Let's say some of the applications that are over here. So as you can see here, some of the application that this can be used is in IT industry. One can use this as a data scientist, and the one is for project management office, business and data analysis, development and database administrator, and many more other applications that you can see. Okay, so another important question, that is name 3 important Power BI tools, right? So this means that we all know that Power BI is a business intelligence tools. So let us now see what are the important tools which are present inside the Power BI. First one is Power BI desktop. Okay, so it is used basically in our desktop computers. Then we have Power BI services. It's an online software. Basically we can use Power BI services on the cloud, and then we can, and also the Power BI is also available in the mobile applications, and this is available both in Android and iOS. Moving on to the next question, what is grouping and how one can use it? Okay, so Power BI desktop, right, allows you to group small data into chunks. For grouping, one should use Control plus click to select the multiple equipments to visualize. So basically what I'm trying to say here is, let's say you have multiple features that you want to group up and visualize. So all you need to do is select whichever groups you want, and then you'll get a visualization based on that. Alright, so moving on to the next question, explain the term responsive slicers. Okay, so Power BI Desktop allows you to group data into small chunks, which we have understood in the previous question. So moving on to the next question, explain the term responsive slices. Alright, so if you have someone who has already used Power BI in the past, right? So we have this Power BI desktop, and within this desktop we have something called as report. Report is a place where we can add up multiple tabs. Alright, so in these tabs we can have various types of graphs. So what this responsive slicer means is that we can increase or decrease the size of an icon. Let's say if there's an icon which is too small for you, you want to enlarge it. Alright, so you can change the size and shape of this, and also the value which is visible to us. So this is what exactly is meant by responsive slices. So let's move on to the next question. Define the term M language. Well, you see, it's a programming language used in Power Query. It's a functional, case-sensitive language which is similar to other programming language and very easy to use. This can be basically used every time you try to create your own model, or let's say you have your own visualization aspect over here. Moving on to the next question, what information is required to create a map in a Power Map? Well, Power Map can be used to display or visualize geography in the nature. Here we can pass up various coordinates and see what are the various types of cities, state, country, latitude and longitude that are available. Moving on to the next question, what is Power Pivot and what are the filter writers in Power BI? Well, first off, Power Pivot is in-memory component which offers high comparison data storage. It also helps you build a data model, creating formulas, relationship, calculate columns for various resources. So basically, Power Pivot allows you to perform various functions, or get a various types of relationship from that various columns. Moving on to the next one, what is Power Pivot data model? Well, you see, it's a model that contains data rights, tables, sections, and data table relations. These data tables help you develop for holding data for business substances. Moving on to the next one, what is Power Query? Well, Power Query is basically an ETL tool which helps you clean, shape, and modify data utilizing instructive inferences without doing anything. Well, basically here we are trying to perform EDA, which is exploratory data analysis. What we're going to do over here is see what are the various types, what are the various features that we have, what are the various null values that we have, and what can we do to deal with the null values. Once we're done with kind of pre-processing our data, we can then perform data visualization. Moving on to the next one, which programming language is used in Power Query? As I mentioned earlier, the programming language that is being used in Power Query is going to be M code. Well, M code is a new programming language that is used in Power Query, and it is simple to use like other programming language, and it's pretty easy. Moving on to the next one, what are tiles in Power BI? Well, tiles, this is something which is very obvious. Tile is a very important feature of Power BI services and can be set as picture of a data which can be printed on a dashboard. Well, if you know, right, Power BI, we have a dashboard, and whatever graphical icons that you try to add or whatever widgets you add is considered as tiles. Moving on to the next question, what is on-premise gateway? Well, on-premise gateway acts as a bridge which helps you to transfer the data from one premises which is not in the cloud safely and securely. Then moving on to the 19th question, explain the term data alerts. Well, alert works on the data that is refreshed. Power BI looks at an alert and it reaches the alert threshold or the limit that an alert can be triggered. Basically, alert works. Let's say you have a data set, right, and you're trying to perform continuous modifications on that. So this is where you use your alert function. So moving on to the next one, what is a calculated column? Well, calculated expression is a tag which allows you to calculate a data stored in a new column. As I mentioned earlier, with the help of tags, we can perform mathematical equations. Let's say you want to calculate an average, right? So if you have this average of a column, you can just use a tags function for that. Moving on to the next one, what is query collapsing? The process of converting the steps in Power Query editor to SQL and executing it by the source database is called as Power collapsing. So basically here you're trying to convert whatever the data you have present in your Power Query into an SQL format. Moving on to the next one, explain the data source filter. Well, data source filter is basically a parameter to filter data into machines. Okay, let's say you have a certain visualization, and there will be multiple parameters. before you pass that parameter directly to visualize it, right, you're going to pass it through some filters just so that you get a more accurate values. Then moving on to the next one, what is content packets? Well, these are pre-built solutions built for Power BI services as a major part of Power BI experience. So if you have to tell you what exactly is content packets, let's say, let's say there are certain kind of features which are common for everything, right? So rather than you being have to develop everything from the start, Power BI will give you a pre-built solution which it already know is commonly used. So this is what is called as content packets. Then this is a kind of interesting question. Is it possible to have multiple active relationships in Power BI? So what this question means is, when you have a desktop, right, let's dashboard, you'll have multiple graphs present inside it. So each of these graphs are interrelated. But the question over here is it possible for you to have multiple active relationship? The answer for this is pretty simple. We cannot have multiple relationship in a single dashboard or a single report. Alright, then moving on to the next question. State the main difference between the distinct function and value function in DAX. As we all know, DAX function is basically used to calculate or mathematical equation. The difference between the two functions, that is the distinct and the values, is that distinct helps you to calculate the null values as well. Alright guys, let's move on to the next question. State the major difference between max and max a function. If you are someone who wants to calculate numerical values, then we use max. However, if it's a non-numerical value, then we should use max a function. Moving on to the next one, is Power BI tool available for free? Well, this is kind of an important question and it sounds silly because whoever is using this, right, they would have already used Power BI. Well, if you're totally new here, let me tell you Power BI is for free. However, if you wish to use all the features of Power BI, then you can go with Power BI Pro subscription account. So moving on to the next one, what is embedded code? Well, Power BI Online contains a publishing web that generates a link for Power BI report. So what I'm trying to say over here is that, every time you create a link, right, let's say you have created a report, Power BI helps you create a web link. Using this web link, you can share this link with others, and this link is called as embedded code. What are the methods to hide and unhide specific reports in Power BI? Well, to hide and unhide a specific report, you have to go to a selection pane on the menu bar and press hide and unhide toggle button to the bookmark. Again, this is an interesting question that we discussed earlier. Can you create multiple dynamic connections between two tables? No, we cannot create multiple dynamic connections. As I mentioned earlier, we can have only one dynamic connections in a single dashboard. Alright guys, so let's now move on to the next question here. So what is the use of Power BI Designer? Well, the answer for this is pretty simple. Power BI Designer allows you to create initiative reports and dashboard in a quick and a faster manner. It helps you to change visual views of the data at fingertips. Alright, so in short, what's happening over here is that with Power BI Designer, right, you can basically create all the beautiful visuals. Okay, and not just that, it's pretty simple. All you need to do over here is drag and drop the various visuals that you need. Moving on to the next question, what are the custom visuals? Okay, the custom visuals, right, like let's say sometimes all the visuals won't be available on the Power BI desktop. So this is what happens over here. You tend to import the visuals from a third-party vendor. So this is what is called as custom visualizations, custom visuals. Moving on to the next question, how can you dynamically change the value measures to show up multiple measures? Okay, so what you can do over here is using harvest measures on the switch functions. Then in Power BI, where do you convert Q&A highlights? Alright, so you will get a highest point of a report in a Power BI benefit. Moving on to the next question, what context style is allowed at Power BI desktop or Power BI DAX, right? So Power BI DAX context style is both row and a filter. Moving on to the next question, which Power BI visual is ideal for estimating execution against an objective? Okay, let's see the answer for this. So the projectile Power BI visual is most filtering for this purpose. I know all of these questions are pretty one word answer, and this is what is usually, asked during your interview. No one is going to ask you theoretical questions here. So make sure you practice a lot of problems and try to create various types of projections and try creating various reports here. So moving on to the next one, what is MDialect capacity to sort a segment in an inquiry supervisor? So let's look at an answer for this. The command for this purpose is sort and then head over for the table. Then, which field comprises can be added to a field well as a silical value? So moving on to the next question, which field composes can be added to the field well of a silical visual? Okay, let's see the answer for this. Well, computing segment should be made up of a DAX architecture. So as long as it's a DAX architecture, you can add it to a silical visual. Which visual would you need to use to show solitary esteem? Okay, so here we use something called as decimate plate. So decimate plate is a visual that you should use to show solitary esteem. Moving on to the next one, what is the process of refreshing Power BI report when it is uploaded onto the cloud? Let's quickly look into the answer for this. So Power BI reports can be refreshed using data management, gateway, and Power BI personal gateway. Moving on next, what is the option to upvote data in a question proofreader? Okay, upvote line is a choice to upvote any data in a question proofreader. So we're basically going to use upvote line. Moving on to the next question, what do you use to consolidate inquiry in Power BI? Okay, so let's see what's the answer for this. The joint queries are used to consolidate inquiries in the Power BI. Okay, inquiries here basically refers to, let's say you have two conditions and you want to merge that. So in order to merge those two queries, you're going to use joint queries. Moving on to the next one, what are the area do you do to change and reshape data in Power BI? Okay, so basically we are talking about editing, right? So data editing helps you change and reshape the data in Power BI. So data editing is an option which is available in Power BI. Moving on to the next one, in which year Microsoft invented Power BI Embedder? Okay, so Power BI Embedder was something which was launched in 2016, and this was present in this business tool over here. Moving on to the next one, this is this is one of the most commonly asked question. What is the use of MID function? Okay, so MID function returns a string characteristic from a specified index position. Now moving on to the next one, name the marketplace where you can download Power BI mobile apps. Okay, so as we all know, and I've also mentioned this earlier, we have first off in Apple Play Store, then we have in Google Play and Windows Store. Windows Store here basically refers to the store on your Windows system or the laptops. So the moving on to the next one, what is the need of signing up with a business email? Like sometimes what can be done is, right, the interviewer might ask you, why should one consider you, like when Power BI is free, why should you consider using Power BI business email? So let's see the answer for this. Well, Power BI is not supporting the email address given by a telecommunication or consumer email. Thus, it is very necessary for signing up with your work email. So if you want to sign up with the Power BI, right, it has to be from your work email or something from provided by your university or your own company. Moving on to the next one, what is the use of a split function in the Power BI? Okay, the split function is basically used to split the string database on a given parameter. Okay, so I can split up whatever the database I have or whatever the values I have and then provide it to the visuals. Now coming down to the next one, what is the sign function, right? Well, sign function returns a direct values if it returns 1 if it's positive and 0 if the value is negative. Moving on to the last but not least, how can you apply for percentile function in Power BI? Okay, so percentile function allows you to return the data value of a specific percentile number. Okay, so we all know what is percentile, right? So we basically have this percentile function which allows you to return the data of that particular characteristics. Alright guys, these were some of the popular Power BI interview questions that can be asked in your interview. If you're someone who's totally new to Power BI and is looking forward to learn Power BI, right, or who is looking forward to upscale, I would definitely consider you or recommend you to check out our free class on Power BI. And the link for this is going to be k21academy.com/da10002. Alright guys, with this we come to the end of our session. I hope you enjoyed and learned something new. If you have any further queries, please do mention them in the comment box below. Until next time, goodbye and take care.